She killed her first daughter on a Tuesday. 18 days later, she killed the second one. 3-year-old Lexi, 17-month-old Scarlett. Both suffocated. Both by the same hands. Their mother's hands. Louise Porton, my daughter. She's not breathing. She's freezing cold. But while that little girl lay dead in her bedroom, her mother was taking topless photos in the bathroom, texting men, arranging hookups, laughing. And when police unlocked her phone, they found a Google search that made detectives physically sick. How long after someone dies does their body go cold? She'd searched it just hours before the murder. This is the story of the mother who murdered her own children because they got in the way of her sex life. 3-year-old Lexi Draper had her mother's blonde hair and her father's soft eyes. Her baby sister, Scarlett Vaughan, was only 17 months old, barely old enough to say her first words. They lived with their 22-year-old mother, Louise Porton, in a small apartment in Rugby, Warwickshire. To the outside world, Louise appeared to be a young, single mom trying her best. She called herself a model on social media, posted pictures with her daughters, smiled for the camera. But behind closed doors, things were very different. A former landlady would later tell police that Louise did whatever she could to avoid being with her children. She'd leave them for hours, days even, disappearing to meet men she'd connected with online. The children's father, Chris Draper, had no contact with them. He'd never even met baby Scarlett. Louise was young. She wanted freedom. She wanted attention. And her daughters were getting in the way. January 2nd, 2018. Little Lexi was rushed to the hospital, gasping for air, her tiny body struggling with each breath. Paramedics worked frantically. They saved her life. Doctors couldn't explain what caused it. They suspected a chest infection and sent her home with antibiotics. 2 days later, it happened again. January 4th. Another emergency call. Lexi once more fighting to breathe. Again, paramedics resuscitated her. Again, doctors were baffled. But while her 3-year-old daughter lay in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, Louise Porton was in the bathroom, taking topless photos, arranging sexual encounters with men she'd met online for as little as 30 pounds, sending messages like, "I'm easy, open to all." Medical staff noticed something strange. Louise showed no concern, no fear, no tears. She seemed irritated. What they didn't know was that someone had deliberately blocked Lexi's airway, and they were about to try again. January 15th, 2018. 3:47 a.m. Louise Porton called 999. "I just found my daughter in her bed. She's not breathing. She's freezing." Paramedics arrived within minutes, but Lexi Draper was already gone. Her small body was cold to the touch. She'd been dead for hours. The postmortem revealed something chilling. Signs consistent with deliberate airway obstruction. Someone had suffocated her. Any normal mother would be destroyed. But Louise? She was on FaceTime, at the funeral home, laughing with a man while planning her daughter's service. The next day, she accepted 41 friend requests on a dating app. And then, just 18 days after Lexi died, February 1st, 2018, Louise checked into a hotel room with baby Scarlett. CCTV captured her carrying the 17-month-old inside. What happened in that room only Louise knows. But when she emerged, Scarlett was already dead. Louise placed her daughter's lifeless body in the car, drove around, even stopped for petrol. The CCTV footage shows her calmly filling up the tank, while her baby lay dead in the back seat. Finally, she called 111. Non-emergency. Said Scarlett seemed unwell, but it wasn't urgent. When paramedics arrived 9 minutes later, Scarlett was completely lifeless. Cold. Stiff. She'd been dead for over an hour. 2 children. Both dead. Both with no clear cause. But doctors noticed something. Both deaths showed signs of compression around the neck. Deliberate airway obstruction. There was no illness. No genetic condition. No accident. Someone had killed these children. and there was only one person who'd been alone with both of them. Police seized Louise's phone. What they found was horrifying. Just hours before Lexi died, Louise had searched. How long does it take for a dead body to go cold? Can you actually die from lack of oxygen? How long after drowning can you resuscitate? And the most chilling, 5 weird things that happen when you die. She'd been researching, preparing, planning. Detectives pieced together a timeline. While Lexi fought for her life in the hospital, Louise was messaging men, offering sexual services. After Lexi's death, she showed no grief, only annoyance. And when little Scarlett became the next problem, Louise eliminated her too. In court, prosecutors would describe it simply: the children got in the way of her lifestyle. August 1, 2019. Birmingham Crown Court. Louise Porton sat emotionless as the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty on both counts of murder. The courtroom erupted. Chris Draper, the children's father, broke down. He'd never even met Scarlett. In his victim impact statement, he said, "They were just an inconvenience to you. I can't understand why my 2 little girls were taken away. Because Louise wanted to sleep around." Justice Amanda Yip looked directly at Louise and said, "These were blameless young children who were vulnerable and ought to have been able to rely on their mother. Instead, you squeezed the life out of them. One way or another, you killed each of your daughters, only calling emergency services when you knew they were dead." The judge called her actions evil and calculated. Louise showed no remorse, no tears, no emotion. She was sentenced to life in prison, minimum 32 years. Today, Louise Porton sits in HM Prison Foston Hall. She'll be 54 years old before she's even eligible for parole. But for Chris Draper and the girl's grandmother, no sentence will ever be enough. In February 2020, Louise's own mother was found dead. The death wasn't considered suspicious. Some say she couldn't live with the horror of what her daughter had done. By now, Lexi and Scarlett would have been running around the house, arguing over toys, starting school terms, living the life every child deserves. But that future was stolen because they trusted the wrong person. In one of her final text messages before her arrest, Louise Porton wrote to a friend, "I've actually got freedom now, but freedom came at the cost of 2 innocent lives, and some choices you can never come back from." If this case made you feel something, you're not alone. Thousands of you watched until the very end. And that matters, because when we remember their names, Lexi and Scarlett, we make sure they're not forgotten. But here's what I need you to understand. Cases like this, they're happening right now. In your city, in your neighborhood, there are children who need someone to notice, someone to speak up, someone to care. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If the story shook you, hit that subscribe button. Not for me, but because every week we shine a light on cases the media forgot. On victims who deserve justice. On stories that need to be told. And if you think someone else needs to hear this story, share it, because awareness saves lives. Drop a comment and tell me, what part of this case disturbed you the most? Was it the Google searches? The lack of remorse? The fact that she did it twice? I read every single comment. Your voice matters here. And if you thought this case was dark, next week's story will leave you speechless. You won't want to miss it. Until then, stay safe, look out for each other, and never ignore your gut.